each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge. It's the Holy Grail.
Improvise. Mysterious.
It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.
So now I want to jump into a part where you're going to go to next, which is talking about the Akashic Records. I've had many people on my show have done Akashic Records reading. Kelly Jones, one of my favorite. With the Akashic Records, and I've had numerous callers call in, that to me is the best way to really home in on where your genetic soul traces have come from. I believe I'm from the star of Arcturus, where my soul originally was birthed. And I incarnated here as an Arcturian, and as soon as I learned that, next thing you know, I have all these different Arcturian friends as well. It's like you just said, our soul families are coming back together. So can you go into a little bit more of the Akashic Records, how that can help us? How does that bring in our soul families by accessing that information?
All right, so the way I observe and read the Akashic Record, which makes me different from a variety of others, when I was 9 years old, I had an experience at a baseball game. It was bottom of the ninth inning, tied score, and our team hit a home run, and everyone cheered. At that moment, everyone in the stadium, everyone watching on television, everyone that was in observance of that stadium or watching that game, I suddenly knew who they were, what they were, past, present, and future. And that, as a 9-year-old kid, I began to learn to multidimensionally think, multidimensionally understand, and take up the mantle of responsibility that using that information in polarity or charge will create negativity. When I retain a neutral perspective and do not allow the information to change me in any way, shape, or form other than learning it and expanding my knowingness, the information is free, and it is always an expansion and contraction of knowingness, so it can be translated from a frequency of light to this frequency now. What also makes me a little bit different is I'm not reading just the Akashic Record of this world. I am reading it of 20,000 simultaneous worlds. By the time I was 15, I understood the responsibility of what came, having that knowledge. This is where I understood the deeper process of soul immigration and soul commerce. You have a star, and that star is a variety of soul families on a bigger scale who have come together and densified into a manifestation, and they create an immigration pattern from other stars who may be thinkers, atheists, mathematicians, or a warrior, and they're trading with someone else who needs healers, doctors, and other people to fill up the society of what they're going to create. This creates a soul commerce market in a galactic-wide and universal scale. So streams of light who are Arcturians and reached a fifth density or sixth density expression and want to create another version of themselves that will go out and learn another perspective, another path. And when that path is done, it'll return and create what's called a master collective for the avatar. So these are how soul families were formed through this spiritual commerce network. Here on Earth, we have a reincarnation layer and an incarnation layer. Earth is naturally an incarnating world, and reincarnation was brought here. And the system of the archons filters the incarnators and reincarnators who are creating spiritual contracts but are trying to deal with the system of domination and control. The system of domination and control's purpose is to make sure you and I are not born in the right and proper soul family. Because if we do, we will have the greatest ability growing up to be the greatest projectors, the greatest healers, the greatest teachers, etc., etc. So they have strived to make sure soul families are separate by creating separation and duality in our physical minds between our dream world and how we do esoteric practices, rituals, and spirituality. In our physical language, they have changed the way words work. Pray, P-R-E-Y, P-R-A-Y, so on and so forth. There are a variety of things that separate us. And then there are laws that also separate soul families, and how the Babylonian money curse also separates us. So there are a variety of protocols installed by the system to make sure when we are born that we don't meet our soul family. That a form of negative synchronicity adds up through the value of debt of this whole world. One of the big teachings that I speak about when it's relating to soul family, you could have someone who is in a particular lineage who has created a life as a fetus in the womb that was supposed to be a doctor of great healing. By the time they got into their first year of college, they were so sick of the way the education system, instead of becoming a grand surgeon and healing people, they went into law and found themselves entangled with the system of law and not the true people that they wanted. There's a large variety of stuff. It includes military, the retail, and the restaurant industry, all bring people into a lower density of frequency in which they are exchanging freely the most polluted energy that is around there. There's also no teaching of spiritual hygiene. When one comments, projects and practices a regular form of spiritual hygiene, soul family members become more close to you. We are innately attracted to each other in what's called 1 degree of separation. Everyone you have ever heard, met, read, studied with, every person that's ever heard your voice is in this potential of 1 degree of separation. And when we're born on this world, we have a potential of 1 degree of separation that says, I can come together with soul families. In the great mystery that's working through the source that all this is, we simply must learn equal co-creation, non-hierarchical order, and naturally the soul family synchronicities will return to us. On a little bigger scale, there are millions and millions of soul families who have used different lineages here on Earth to store information in. So when you get born into a very rare lineage, you could have the value of 7 million years of our history and the internal secret practices of those families, where some other DNA lineage could have almost nothing. You were just a potato farmer who became an industrial worker, and by the time that individual was born in 1959, it was imprinted through their mother and father and their ancestral lineages, and they truly weren't able to become the spiritual scientists or anything else that they want. They were limited because their soul family energy wasn't a part of the initial imprint that was co-creating the growing life.
Wow, that really hit home for me. Made so much sense. I've had Akashic Records readings before, and Krista, who's on here, who just was thanking everyone, she channels the Orion High Council, and when they went to access my records, they were not able to because of my higher self has a protection around it. So the higher council had to ask my permission to access my records, just like you were just saying.
So Arcturians have a collective of collectives, and then a master collective and a master collective, and it's a dolma. They also are able to do what's called forking their source stream. So this will be probably just for you and a handful of others that might understand this scale of information. So when you are a source stream, that means you are I am realized in Arcturus, meaning you've reached your form of ascension or going from 6th to 7th density, and you can simultaneously exist in multiple incarnations as a forked source stream connected to the celestial mind that you're living on. So we're simultaneously born on Arcturus, simultaneously born here. Your simultaneous version of the self has reached its 6th to 7th density, and it is now co-creating an equal value with you. So you can raise to 7th density, communicate to the celestial mind, and then become the celestial medium. So when the Orion Council wanted to tap into that layer, it needed permission from the celestial mind that is co-creating at the Akashic Record and the collective of collectives, because there is a hierarchical expression in learning the scales and responsibility at the celestial level. Thus why you are part of putting a conference like this together.
That makes, yes. Thank you for that clarity. I appreciate that.
You speak a little bit about the psychic pheromones. Now, is this only these great beings that have that, or does everyone have some level of these psychic pheromones?
Everyone has some level. It's about understanding the teachings of 1 degree of separation, and knowing that when you're creating a psychic pheromone, you are affecting your immediate 1 degree of separation, which is those in the physical room with you who still have sight, sense, sound, and something. When you add technology, you can be on the other side of the world and still be a part of this. Does my psychic pheromone, if I'm using it, affect them? Yes, it does. That's a different version of 1 degree of separation. And then there's the mass 1 degree of separation, which is everyone you've ever met in your entire life, because they're still a part of your signature frequency. Every person you've ever passed on the street, them too. When you understand that scale and you apply a psychic pheromone in knowingness with the power of chi and all that other stuff, you can connect to billions. It's everyone you've ever met. It's understanding the different variances of it and how you're applying it to some type of expression that is meant to manifest a reality type.
Do you guys sometimes we see movies, and the movies are of a whole bunch of people that are connected in some way, but they haven't, that you all see the separate things of what they're going through at the same time. When you see they go to this scene and you see these people doing this or this scene, and then the people, and then all of a sudden how that just connects at the end of the movie. Do you know those types of series or movies where there's all different things going on at the same time?
Yes.
And you see how then the connection comes together, and then one person might know one person from that person, and they're dealing with a whole different thing that it all connects in the end when you watch these movies. Sometimes that would be a good example of trying to visualize what 1 degree of separation actually means in our lives, in our daily lives. How that context. And I'm really endeavoring to think about some of the movies I've seen or some of the series that do that, and I'm losing a little bit on that.
It's the movie 4 Rooms. It's about 4 separate people that are in 4 separate hotel rooms, but their common thread is the bellhop. And the bellhop, it's the bellhop's worst day. Okay, so that's a common. The Usual Suspects, all sorts of movies where a Memento, movies where you have multiple characters that get led down the chain of events until they all bang into each other and meet each other.
That's a good way of maybe deciphering 1 degree of separation in this now, in our daily experiences.
And when you learn how to manipulate 1 degree of separation, it isn't a train wreck. It's as easy as planning a list for a day.
Huh? Oh yeah, no one can go as when Andrew gets into his explanations, he's just so succinct. The trick is to try and find a way of putting it in an example that we can relate to, like in this timeline, in this world, like our daily lives now, in 2014.
A couple weeks ago, I mentioned 2 degrees of separation, and I made a really specific statement. Like, if you guys really are those that are really study, you hear when I say 1 degree of separation, and the very few times that I mention 2 degrees of separation, that's when the ascended masters are playing direct chess with some scenario. And then there are beings that are in 4 degrees of separation. These are our 5th dimensional selves trying to manipulate our first dimensional selves, or a 9th dimensional selves and manipulating our 4th dimensional, or a 5th dimension and manipulating our 4th dimensional self, so a different 3rd dimensional self is created so the 5th dimensional self can go back and have a different experience, while the 4th dimensional self is still having a 1 degree of separation experience from its 5th degree self.
And all of you got that, right? Stop, pause, rewind.
And time is only a constant when you want to manifest something from no time.
I see.
Like a coordinate.
Like a coordinate. Or getting a group of people to amass in an area like feral cats. Let's look at a bar. A corner bar. A dive bar. That's got a bartender in it. What's his 1 degree of separation? Everyone that comes in and everyone that buys a drink from him? What attracts people to his bar on Friday? Is it the torn leather seats, the stale smell of cigarettes, the crappy karaoke on Friday nights? No. It's the fact that people are going to be coming to a public format to share a public consumption of an alcohol with the oversight of a person that's the server of said alcohol, which is ingrained into our DNA lineages of hierarchical order. From there, of the bar, we get dating. Here in America, bar dating, it's the thing to do, and it's been the thing to do because it's passed on from generation to generation until they came up with online dating, which is just even worse than bar dating because you have all the other people that never go out and do anything. So a bar is the perfect way to understand 1 degree of separation. Have you ever just sat at a bar for more than 6 or 7 hours and just watched the people come through while you're enjoying your time with others?
At a cafe outside, yes, but not really at a bar.
Okay, well, a nice restaurant,
yeah,
whatever.
And you just watch
the people come in and out. When there are times you're going to meet someone. You
Oh
just
yeah.
know.
You can
You
sense
just
it. You just
know.
know it. Yeah.
Well, we have the ability to control our 1 degree of separation. And there are little ceremonies and rituals that people can begin to do from themselves. And it starts with what's you figuring out who's in your 1 degree of separation in your immediate life. Mother, father, children, dog, cat, house, plants around the house, people at work, neighbors, cousins, so on and so forth. Those are figure out who you see in a given day. Who are the constants, and then who are the 1 degree of separation of your constants. And then understand your constants define your whole 1 degree of separation. They gave you anchorage in this world to have a shared experience so that your 1 degree of separation becomes 2 degrees of separation in awareness. That's your awareness of your environment. Leaving the family home, going out and creating your own nest, so that your 1 degree of separation is now 1 degree of separation of those that created you. So everything is in your potential. Because that determines how much energy you have to create sacred space. Once you know what your constant 1 degree of separation is. So that's the first little technique that people can do. Start writing down who's in your 1 degree of separation. And to answer a lot of questions, yes, we are in your 1 degree of separation if we were watching us on video. That includes all of the other people that you are watching on video too. They are in your 1 degree of separation too. That's where you can begin to determine how many pairs of dirty energy underwear you may put on in a single day. A lot of people get very visceral reactions when I say dirty energy underwear. Like Natalie, at first you're like, we have got to change that. But you slowly realized why I use such a visceral term.
Okay.
Wow. He still doesn't like it.
I think it's really good. It's really explicative. But because it's so perfect. Because it is when you look at it energetically, that is exactly what it is. And to be able to put that in a metaphor that we can truly understand, so that we wake up, get it, we start to practice, start to understand that our lives can be so much better if we start to practice these forms of cleanliness. I think it's perfect. I don't remember saying that it wasn't, but that's what I'm saying. Okay, yes. For. Sure, it's me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Positive.
You're the historian, you'd know.
Yes. I checked the record. And something else I'll have to say is Natalie and I, we have such a unique friendship. And when we first met, she was having this little joke. Well, you could cheat. You could just go and read the records.
I'm like, that's cheating. I went in, traveled, looked, blah, 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 and he's like, hang on a second. And I'm sitting there going, that is so cheating.
Sovereign free will.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Imagine what we can get done if we could just go to the back of the book. Oh dear. Well, like with maths, in school in the old days, you used to have these math books, and at the back of the book were all the answers.
And that's also a really good one. A nice exercise is listing your 1 degree of separation, so that from January until June, as you've done your spiritual process, you'll start to see the separation of densities, and actually make a list of your own separation of densities. How much have you changed from June? From January to June to now.
This little 1 degree of separation teaching is not hard.
No.
The first expression you want to come down to is, I'm journaling my 1 degree of separation so I can understand it with hindsight and foresight.
Mm-hmm.
So journaling means you write it down. One of the two ways, either on computer or on paper. If you are not journaling, you're faking it.
That's so true.
You are not going to see your 1 degree of separation unless you can put your thoughts, your concepts into it to understand what the equation around you is. That equation says, who is in your general family that you see every day?
Mm-hmm,
okay?
Mm-hmm.
There are people outside of your general family you see every day. That is the people that work with you. That includes the people that crossed you on the street, the people that are that you cross in the car, the people you witness on television.
Yeah.
Okay?
Have you changed new TV series? Or what are you currently watching?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one of the way to do it is your mom, dad, daughters, sons, all right, work co-mate, all the people that I pass each day going to work. Okay, oh, I have called this person this month and this person this month. I went to this bar this day. I may not know who everyone is in there, but you can give that bar concept a name, Scotty's Bar, and all those that are in 1 degree of separation of that bar. You have changed all the different equations, the way that the system works with you.
Also, what I love to do is to note down the phenomena.
The phenomena, that's the next thing.
It's the mysterious experiences that have realized themselves, the mystical that have realized
This is how we predict
itself.
synchronicities, by looking at our 1 degree of separation. And after a while, you can make synchronicities manifest now by being aware of how your 1 degree of separation changes from day to day, week to week, month to month, and year to year.
You know, that's really interesting because our son has been doing some amazing stuff these last 6 months.
Right. And for those that would have been journaling and recording when the coronal mass ejections start on the sun and then arrive on the planet, you would notice a massive change in this world. Earthquakes and thunderstorms that appear out of nowhere, or intense dreams in other people or in yourself. We are going to be talking about decisions today. Decisions that everyone has to make. Decisions that are about understanding who's around you, what's around you, the spiritual interaction. I call this the council that you created in your own fire expression. This council of fire is all of the dreaming entities that are working with you, all the physical entities that are working with you, all the spiritual entities that are working with you. That creates your 1 degree of spiritual separation. All those that are trying to bring energy to you are bringing their intent, their understanding, and they're also trying to bring their prayers to you. In their prayers is a different groove of movement, a different groove of cycles. It is a rhythm in motion and time that's infinite, that asks you, that invites you to become harmonic with their rhythm and time, even though our fraud time doesn't allow us to be in spirit no time. We must create that energy in our own way. We must create that time in our own way so that ultimately our own inner healing happens in a moment-to-moment process. And when healing is a process and not an event, we no longer trick ourselves into temporary healing and allowing sickness to come back. So many people trick themselves in the placebo effect of healing that they think they're completely healed, when in fact they're just covering it up with the illusion of the self-created moment of healing. This is why so many sicknesses come back with ravenous energies that just eat up the body after a while, because one cannot acknowledge the original need for the healing, and therefore we cover it up with the placebo healing. Once we understand who is within our 1 degree of spiritual separation, and we've decided that the placebo effect is not for us, that we want the true mystical experience, we must have that ritual of joy that says, I have earned the right, and I'm giving myself the right to enjoy it. Because if you cannot have joy in your life, a ritual of your own joy, you are limited in the slave world that we live in. That ritual of joy culminates into an hour of power. It is where you have the highest amount of physical and spiritual energy after you awaken. That's the time of day where your flower of energy is the brightest, pointing at grandfather's sun, going, I am ready, I am here, I am interacting with photonic light, and I am in pure joy, separate of whatever the system is trying to impress upon me that isn't joy energy. When we give ourselves that hour, that ritual of joy, that opening in that moment, we understand how powerful of a being we are. Opposite of that time is when our energy is the least, and is when where we ask to go into the dream time to reinvigorate us. So the next moment we give ourselves the ritual of joy, the unlimited dream time energy flows through us and brings a whole new layer of joy. And in that layer of joy, we get to retreat into ourself with that inner kid smile that allows us to be both masculine and feminine and without any inner judgments into ourself. That point of no inner judgment is a victory that you must learn to celebrate, because you've achieved the sacred neutrality of the self, the hour of power, recognizing your greatest power and your littlest power and connecting them to the infinite source of energies that allows you to purify yourself with life, death, and rebirth moments, going upon the cycles of changes, letting go of the old, finding the new, and seeking out the mystical experiences that are everywhere upon us. If one thing that everyone can take from these stream reads, become a vision quester in your own way, of your own definition of that word. Quest for your own vision. Make it your own moral code to find a truth, to go to a place, to feel that energy, to be in the ritual of joy, connected with dream space, separate of the system of domination and control, and allow yourself to have that a la carte belief system and apply any belief system to any moment that fits you perfectly. Because within the infinite belief system is the infinite viewpoints, the infinite options, the infinite perspectives that show us the new abilities that are present now within us. And those present abilities within us are the ultimate rites of passage, acknowledging them as heart-centric based expressions separate of the system that is telling you you are a slave, or you are a birther, or you are to be this or that. No, we are manifesting, co-creating photonic beings of light anchored in these two legs that are also another expression of photonic shared realities. Thank you, everyone.
So America at that time, we'll go Canada, North America. It's a little harder to describe what they wanted out of them, because the type of genetic engineering was meant to look at other worlds where their genetic pool was heavily reduced, and they would bring them to Earth and make them a native clan in Canada or North America, and it was like a micro bubble of reality that allowed the remaining soul families to come out of eternity and come back into a lineage and bring more DNA through their incarnating of light. So it was a way of farming the system so more DNA would come in. Now, so it's like, and then that would feed the Aztecs, the Toltecs, and the Olmecs, because they would, regularly be, roaming the territories until they found certain areas. Then they made their own cultures, and then those cultures were connected via, travels, roadways, trade, and their spirit would take them south.
Yeah, so it was trying to create a maximum variance in the DNA potential to create. Yeah, I get you.
So the Aztecs represented the place where perception of rituals were done, which were actuality direct connections to the portal of the sun, so they could transport in souls from other astral worlds direct into a temporary astral world where tens of millions of people or thousands of people would be partaking in a ritual, and upload soul codes into them, which would go and have children, and if they had the right soul code, they could then connect and have children from other parts of the galaxy come in and not have to directly transfer from one soul star to another. So it's like direct to the surface. And there was a byproduct of energy that the Temple of the Moon and Sun and the Aztecs actually did, and it created this, I want to call it like like quicksilver, but it isn't. It isn't poisonous. It's actually, extremely life-giving. But it's not a liquid metal. It just kind of resembled like a paint, like a consistency of a paint. And it would be added to water, and it was such highly sought after. If you've had a blank world that you were trying to attract a celestial soul to, you would use stuff like that because it would greatly increase the ability of the celestial being to bond faster with the shell of the planet that might have been created for them.
You know what? It's ironic you actually say that, all right? There's this show, we were talking about soft disclosure and stuff we've been watching, and it's called Legend of the Seeker. And it's really...
I know that show, yeah.
And I kid you not, I watched it ages ago, and I just started rewatching it, and the clip I started was about this very isolated sort of water supply, and in it were these flakes of sort of gold sort of paint. And what it was it was like life-giving energy in the form of a paint sort of thing. And the guy had to just put it into his mouth. He had to give it to the girl, and the girl, with her abilities, transferred life into a dead person. I mean, it reanimated life, like, with this sort of very sacred elixir water in this, I mean, I just flicked on it, like, randomly, like, just 2 days ago, mate. And it's like, cool, very interesting.
So that's what the Aztecs did. And then as the Aztecs became more warlike and more sacrificial, they were creating more of that, that luminescent paint, life-giving stuff at the sacrifice of thousands.
So in a bit of a way, it's a bit like Jupiter ascending metaphor. Yeah, but it's like, it's not that water and that energy, because we've had that chat, but it's a metaphor. Right.
Yeah. So you go... So we're going to move on to the next caller, and our next caller is Romalie. Romalie, where are you calling from?
Seattle.
Seattle, welcome to the show. What kind of questions do you want to start with?
Well, I took a class with Dolores Cannon a few years ago, and I had a past life regression to a situation of presiding over a ritual sacrifice of my daughter. Mm-hmm. And I was interested in anything you might have to say about it. I sort of got a download that I agreed to do this, and that I came into life to do this. But it seems, why?
Why? How long ago was this?
What?
The past life regression?
It was, I think, in 2012.
Okay. Just a second here. And just give me the first name of the daughter.
At that time? I don't know.
No, currently.
Phoebe.
1 second here. All right, well, what's going on here is you have a tremendous amount of religious energy between you and her. And in fact, she has sacrificed you and you have sacrificed her many times. And the first sacrifice that's between you goes back to about 800 BC when both of you were living in the Olmecs lifestyle in Mesoamerica. Ritual sacrifice only existed when the DNA lineage got an impure process within it, some form of DNA. In fact, what had happened is the DNA lineage that you were in the Olmec situation actually self-procreated into what we call the long skulls. Are you familiar with the long skulls?
Yes.
So in that scenario, your daughter in 800 BC was born and had a normal head, and then all of a sudden her head changed into a long skull format when she was about 6 months old. And the priests of that era knew that that was a good thing and yet a very bad thing. That means the lineage itself had something had come into it, and there was great change, and there was a sacrifice that was done to the god, the Olmec god of that time, which was Quetzalcoatl, and that was the first perversion of the lineage, and many of the members of the Olmec situations began not incarnating in that lineage anymore. That sacrifice was supposed to stop the lineage being destroyed.
but it didn't matter because the curse had already begun from the religious wars that were raging through time. And when we look at what incarnation and reincarnation, it is both a struggle, a battle to find unity and balance amongst all the different soul families that we're trying to mass incarnate into lineages. So for this lifetime, it's understanding that there's great change that's going to be coming from your daughter, and that past life regression that affected you so much is where you have to begin to let go of the birth traumas that were created from the past life sacrifice, both on your side and her side. In fact, she sacrificed you many more times in the future. And one of the reasons you're feeling this is because your soul never got a full life review of what it meant for that lineage change.
Hmm.
Is there any other specific questions you want to ask about it? I could help clear it up.
Well, I thought that I got a download kind of during the thing that I had agreed to do the sacrifice before I came into life.
Absolutely, yes.
So who is the agreement made with?
Higher soul to higher soul, because at that point in time, the Olmecs were going to be eliminated from history. All that's left of the Olmecs is their stone buildings that they created that were ultimately taken over by the Aztecs, Toltecs, and Mayans. They're the forgotten society.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the Olmecs went through an ascension process similar to what we are now, where they were the great star watchers. They were the first builders of the Mesoamerican star watching temples, and they were able to transfer their consciousness and leave their bodies here. Their bodies would just turn into light, and they would go somewhere else to another soul family, so that in a future time they would come back to Earth as if they never left the incarnation grid. Is basically a way of checking out of Earth and then coming back into the stream of time like you've never left.
So the idea that I had at the time was there was some purposeful good in this sacrifice.
Correct, because it prevented, well, we'll just call it lizard DNA lineage from abusing the Olmec lineage before it left its frequency of time. So essentially the Olmecs wanted to be forgotten. They did not want their lineages to be hijacked and to be destroyed and to be turned into slaves. So they chose to eliminate that, and the sacrifice was literally to stop the lizard lineage from hijacking the Olmec spirituality moments.
So the daughter that I have in this life is related to the daughter that I...
Exact same soul. Everything is a circle.
Well, it does seem that she's come in for a huge purpose.
Sure. One of those purposes is she's a rainbow child. So she can be a crystal and indigo simultaneously, and she's one of those people that's going to be very powerful psychic if you should choose to train her in that way. She's going to be very sensitive, very, very sensitive. And your imprinting to her is ultimately what's going to lead her to choose a life of business or a life of spirituality or an ability to mix the two.
Moji, are you there?
Yes. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing on this fine evening?
I'm doing fantastic now that I'm speaking with you again.
So how is the dragon doing?
I'm sorry?
How is the dragon doing?
The dragon? don't know. Tell me about the dragon.
Smart dragon.
Why? Tell me. Come on. Stop laughing and tell me.
Okay, so how have things been for you for the last 10 days?
It has been crazy.
Okay.
It's been, how has it been? You want more specific how crazy I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of entities that have been visiting me.
Uh-huh. All of them looking for remedy and resolve, huh?
Well, obviously they are, because they're pretty persistent. They're not letting go, and I don't understand why. What are they trying to tell me? What's going on?
They're very afraid that their form of reality is going to be eliminated by a weapon that's being created in Las Cruces, Mexico right now. It's a reality-altering weapon that has been used on previous paradox timelines that has the ability to actually erase elemental dragons' light bodies, so they have to start over. And this weapon is being prepared to be deployed from Las Cruces, Mexico to Palmdale Air Force Base in Florida, and then there it'll be replicated and be brought to the Netherlands, it'll be brought to Iceland, and then be entered into the upper atmosphere, and then from the upper atmosphere be forced dimensional traveled into Hollow Earth to complete an extinction process and remove certain types of elemental dragons completely from the Galactic Ascension machine as if they never existed in the first.
So how is that related to me? What does that have to do with me? How am I in the middle of this?
You're the bodyguard, protected, soul contracted, soul code holding dragon from 200 different planets gene pools. When we first had our conversation, things were kind of rough for you. And one of those reasons why is your bodyguard network hadn't been activated. You parachuted into a body at a point in time where there should have been a whole bunch of people there to receive you, and that didn't happen. But you were planned triple Z after a whole bunch of very powerful dragon entities didn't make it into skin suits, didn't make it into dragon skin suits either, and they had no other choice but to go through the forgetting for a very long period of time and to hope that they made it to the end, not separated into a million pieces, but kind of maybe 80 or 90. You made it in about 18 pieces. So those other 17 pieces that you have going right now are the reason why the 200 bodyguard networks instantly summoned for you in that first activation for you. And one of the reasons they're so persistent, it's the other 17 bodies of you who are constantly going through this tremendous communication, and it's all bleeding through to you, who is in charge of the I am present self now. And you have to realize that you have to create a hierarchical structure temporarily so that this I am presence can understand what the other 17 versions of yourself are going through, so you can begin a separate and equal healing process on all 17 of them, so that you have full communication with the information stream and the 18 beings that makes up you.
Wow. Okay. How do I do that, Andrew?
Well, it comes down to what are you going to do to connect to the planet? And what does it take for you to do it with a smile on your face, like the biggest kid smile you've ever had? It's as simplest as the answer gets. Can you make a sand castle that's 10 feet tall and has your frequency in it, and then just allow people to see it? Can you go and do a ceremony? Can you go and do something where you're not in your head, but you're molding something with the earth? And that time that you're molding something with the earth is where the dragon energy that are working through you can begin to, like sandpaper, begin grinding away at all the stuff that's bleeding away into you, so that your presence, the one that is you now, that has a specific experience, that's managing the bodyguard networks for the other dragon souls out there. So for those callers that are listening, she's a special person. She has soul codes that have brought in bodyguards, specific light beings that are protecting other specific light beings to make sure that there's an anchorage so all beings have access to all soul codes at all times.
Okay. All right. Wow. I was not expecting this at all. I know that my first reading you were holding back a lot, and you didn't feel like I was ready to hear everything, and now you're telling me everything.
There are reasons why. When you first came to me, there was a lot of things that you needed to personally come into an understanding with. And if we look at that first reading, once the bodyguard network was set up and you weren't, I'm going to call this just a metaphor, in spiritual blue ball, because you had never been able to get that load of energy out of you to manifest the frequency to create the portal so that the bodyguards could come in.
Now you're saying that I'm able to do that?
You've already done it. After the first reading, there was enough energy within you. There weren't enough things feeding on you so that you created the bodyguard network. Now you have to begin to use it.
Okay, and how do I use it? Just like what you told me about the sandcastle and the beach and just being out there?
That, and then begin to actively say with your voice, like a commander general, I summon the dragon lineage armies within my DNA and the bodyguard network in my DNA to begin protecting me and my 17 selves so that all 18 soul sparks of myself can begin to be unified, and all other beings that are connected to me through 1 degree of separation that need these soul codes also share in the bodyguard network, so that all beings have access to all soul codes at all times. That's your main purpose, to make sure that the soul codes never, the flame of the soul codes never burn out. That's why you came in protected, and that's why you were harassed for so many years, because if you're not broadcasting your soul codes, no one gets them. Now you're broadcasting your soul codes. Now you have to realize that you are an equal part of that co-creation. This being talking to me right now, not all the other selves that are there. This being is the one that gets to do what? Have the experience in equal co-creation. And you need to begin to plan how you can be in equal co-creation with this bodyguard network. You may want to think of it as a novel right now, where you have you and 17 characters, and somehow those 17 characters all need the common words, so the bodyguard network is equally divided amongst them, and you, the one that is writing this through the hierarchical perceptive, can begin to understand that you can make non-hierarchical by making all beings equal. And then having all other beings that are 1 degree of separation of you access to your full soul codes while you are still protected in a sacred space.
Okay, so if I had activated you set up done, then why am I still being attacked?
Because there are, like I said, the other 17 versions of yourself don't have the equal bodyguard energy.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it. Okay.
It is
and then
your duty.
The statements that you said.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's your duty to verbally express equality of the bodyguard network amongst your own soul shards. The dragon energies won't do it for you. The other elemental energies won't do it, because it is your test of sovereignty as a DNA skin suit, as an I am presence, and as an oversoul. Will you take the respect and responsibility of the 7 future generations into your heart, connect to your sacred feminine, and be expressing at all times your soul codes in harmony and love? Can you find yourself that mate that completes your other side? Can you begin to end the whispers of voices that you've been hearing for millions of years and give them all to the spiritual court of equity, so you can have a life of peace, unity, love, respect, and understanding? Because that is what you are thriving for so long.
Right, right. Wow. Okay. I don't know what to say, Andrew.
Did you hear the other call, the first caller we did with the light language?
Yes, we did. I did. Yes, absolutely.
What did you feel about that? What was going through you when you heard that?
It sounded familiar. It sounded something that when I had my first reading with you, it's something that you spoken to me about, and I remember I started bawling when you did. It was I couldn't stop crying.
Yeah, I had to use that particular soul language to activate the bodyguard network. Your higher frequency soul was not able to actually manipulate your voice box to create the frequencies. So I co-worded with your soul the actual frequencies, and your body went through the release so that your throat chakra now has access to your higher soul, because it had been blocked out. There had been a very powerful chunk of glacier energy that just got in there and said, you shall not pass. And now that it's gone, you need this in yourself too, to know that your voice is infinitely linked into your heart.
Yeah.
And the heart can bypass the mind and talk, and that is the nature of light language. And there are dragon light languages that are tremendously, tremendously healing. And I'm going to give a sample to one here. Wa hua ti ya tomoti ta haka ye ka da ka chi wa ta ti na ha yita ti tonita katana chi mona ta kata ta chinto ma mochi kata moshi tunkata. Do you feel that tremendous settling of energy?
It's actually pretty intense.
Huh? What else do you feel?
It just very much completes.
Okay.
Does that make sense? It's like
Yes. I just activated your gallbladder so that you can give commanding general words. So just repeat after me. I, in the ever-present moment.
I, in the ever-present. I'm sorry. One more time.
I, in the ever-present moment.
I, in the ever-present moment.
Activate my gallbladder.
Activate my gallbladder.
To be in unison with my throat heart.
To be unison with my throat heart.
To begin to command the bodyguard network.
To begin to
command the bodyguard network.
The bodyguard network.
With my I am presence voice.
With my I am presence voice.
With this now sealed in place.
With now sealed in place.
I have the ability.
I have the ability.
In all dimensions and time streams.
In all dimensions and time streams.
To equally share the infinite bodyguard network.
To infinitely share the body. Share, right?
Yep.
Share the bodyguard network.
With all other versions of myself.
In all other versions of myself.
So that I am a unified soul shard.
So I am a unified
soul shard.
Soul shard.
Who is now complete.
Who is now complete.
The use of my voice.
The use of my voice.
Is now integrated into my protection.
Is now integrated into my new protection.
Of my home.
Of my home.
My family and friends.
My family and friends.
My city.
My city.
And all other expressions of culture that I live in with a voice.
And all the other expressions of culture that I have lived in this voice.
It is the power of this voice.
It is the power of this voice.
to share all soul codes.
To share all soul codes.
In perfect equal protection.
In perfect equal protection.
There we go. Tati ta watita tamo machi ma amata naha watia momi mina chi wobi di natata chakawata nata chico mona na momana nenjata poti naha tuke cha nata momata iyo nomantata mokachi ganata mochi.
Wow.
Okay, I want you to try your own little bit of light language. It's important here. Just let your heart make the frequencies through your voice. It's connected now. Just find the trust in yourself to make the intonations.
Okay. Okay. All right. This is amazing. All right. Andrew, I wanted to ask you about, I've had, Scott, there's a couple of experiences that I've had through, okay. I'm able to tap into people's frequency. I'm able to see the frequency that's being set to people as before it becomes a thought form for them. Mm-hmm. And I can see it, I can read it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's called understanding the potential of the predictable person in front of you. And until people begin to be unpredictable, that skill set will be some of your greatest advantages, but also a disadvantage. Because it means you have to look, and looking can be very tiring after a while.
Okay, but what do you mean look? I don't understand. I mean,
Your third eye is always doing this. There are times that the third eye muscle gets so strong, when you want it to turn off, it needs to flex. And you begin seeing these predictions and potentials in people, even though it's not supposed to be part of this layer of the I am self's experience and expression, but it is right now, because it is the next part of your DNA activation. It is saying, are you ready for this next layer of change, where when you come out of the egg of creation, will you be ready for a 3 or 4 streams of information lifetime instead of the 2 stream of information you have from your eye that becomes a single stream of information in your third eye? You will effectively create 2 additional third eyes in your crown chakra when you're done with this DNA change. And
is this me or everyone else?
It's a way for you to realize that what's coming in your DNA change is a massive change in the way you perceive the world, and your spirit does not want to overwhelm your body with these changes, but it also wants to prepare you so that it's not this massive shock. So it's beginning to show you more and more and more of the other layers of the world that are working here, and this is where you've got to look at this as like some of the most advanced times of self-study of what's going on and how to physically record it. Whether you do audio logs, video logs, or writing, you need to begin recording those experiences so the I am presence can go back and look at the frequency of what was created, so that you can understand that even you were predictable in some of those scenarios, and learning to use that skill directly on yourself is the key to making that DNA change have the easy button. So it's not hard at all, and it costs very little internal energy once you learn to turn that skill on yourself.
Right. Okay. I understand what you mean. I get it. I really do. But the other question I have for you is that I'm getting a lot of downloads. where is that coming from? Is that, again, my soul that's trying to prepare me, just like what you just said a few minutes ago? Or
Yeah. The next thing is the downloads. A lot of these are trying to prepare you for, again, the mass amounts of streams that are coming in, and it's trying to determine how much creative energy do you have to co-create with it. So these downloads will come in different forums and formats to see how fast you can adapt with the raw ability to pull into creation and co-create with it, and to allow the experience to be rich and beneficial and healing for you, instead of some of the limited patterns that we may live in, such as shame, blame, and guilt being projected onto us by others, or our own shame, blame, and guilt that limit us from allowing that experience to have the full joy and happiness from the tips of our fingers and toes.
Okay.
I mean, you kind of got to go deeper into the experience, but at the same time not be lost into the experience.
Right. Actually, I'm not lost. It's
I know you're not lost. I know you're not lost. You just got a map that's got a whole bunch of points on it that you got to visit, and it's like, all right, where do I start? All right, I did these first 10. There's 97 more to go. You got a long journey. A journey into understanding the multidimensional self. And you have these gifts that are waiting for you, that you have set up for yourself. A very ancient future version of yourself has been orchestrating these gifts in time for you. When you learn to use that frequency skill that you talked about on yourself, you'll be able to see these other beings in the ancient future time traveling back to meet you in a camouflage scenario. And when you use the skill on yourself and you recognize your other frequency of yourself, is where these gifts will be handed to you. And these are spiritual gifts. The gift to clear the field of energy of other people with the connection to other people's future selves, as well as creating portals into the dream world that allow people to connect to future soul families, so those future soul families can begin their process of disconnection from the galactic ascension machine in full sovereignty, knowing that we are coming out in full sovereignty.
So, this is amazing. Today I'm getting hit with so many different things. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, today I met with a gentleman that mentioned something about having, that I carry the liquid crystal. It's the yellow staff from the Atlantean times, that I'm the carrier of that knowledge. Does that make any sense to you?
It does and it doesn't. The expression of what I said about you holding all the soul codes is what he is saying is the staff, when in fact the staff is not something real. It's just a metaphor that the culture had to adapt to make something real. Instead of it being internal inside you, it's a staff. And it's not a staff, it's always internal. Now there are technologies, staffs that have cross dimensions and time streams, but those purposes were to karmically connect people to those objects so that there would be a lure for them to get out of other paradox timelines and to seek out these items of power so they can be trapped on the non-paradox timeline to end karma for all galaxies and universes simultaneously. So there are millions of these objects that are out there that do this, that are particular portal creators to make sure beings somewhere else, to beings that were somewhere else that needed to be here on the end timeline could finally make it here.
Okay. My God, there's this feeling of I'm constantly waiting for something to happen. And I'm wondering what's this thing that's holding me back. And I always felt like there's something that's holding me back. But what is the immediate thing that I need to do at this point?
Use your voice.
I'm sorry?
You need to
my
use
voice.
your voice like the commanding general.
Okay.
You need to realize that the commanding general voice is your most powerful tool this lifetime. You have the access to the infinite bodyguard network. And when you get into learning to use your voice in power in your sacred space, you can extend that protection to everyone in the galaxy and universe if you should choose.
I feel that already, like within the people that are very close to me.
Yeah.
Somehow I feel that I'm protecting them, and just for them being with me. Or, they've taken trips that I feel that I need to be there to protect them, and I know that they're protected because of my beingness there. I feel that. It's really interesting because they even expressed it too, saying that, I feel that you were there because, you were there to protect me for some strange reason. It's not just, So I do feel that, and I do, have that feeling, with many people around me, as already. So, okay, and how do use my voice? Okay, I just answered my own question.
With your own voice.
With my own voice, exactly. Okay. I want to ask you about I don't know if this is too personal, but it's about my mother. Okay. How is she spiritually attached to me? You mentioned that before.
Yeah, I don't think you really want that on air.
Okay.
I don't think you really want that on air. It's got a lot of karma from India past. A lot of British East India Trading Company stuff. It's nasty, really, really nasty. And your mother is in the last stage of her soul, letting go and giving up and going into recyclement. She could never figure out how to break reincarnation. Just could never do it. Has been stuck in it for so long that that's her whole existence. But again, she volunteered to be like that from the very beginning. So at the end, the greatest healers come out and find beings like her, so she can become one of the greatest beings of healing for future generations.
In other words, did she sacrifice herself?
In a metaphorical way, yes. But at the same time, at any point in time, she could have used her sovereign free will to get out of it and change the experience and still been here at the end. She had just been a divinity path being for too long, gave birth to too many powerful souls, and couldn't live without them in lifetimes. And those powerful souls got intertwined with divinity path karma, and the next thing you know, she's a kindred spirits in thousands and millions of lifetimes to all of these divinity path beings she'd given birth to. Instead of having her own life of great power multiple times, she gave away her power lifetime after lifetime to other beings she gave birth to.
Why would she do that?
Every soul has had a different view of the Galactic Ascension machine when they first went into it in awareness, created the dream world so that the constant paradox timelines could actually exist. There was no unified way of looking at it, and from her time and her belief system when she entered in it, it was her understanding through her soul family connections that there needed to be this constant, powerful, sacred feminine that was constantly giving birth to divinity beings, and if there wasn't enough divinity beings, this galactic ascension machine would never work. So she just volunteered herself from the very beginning to be a divinity path birthing machine that ultimately just burned herself out. She gave birth way too many times.
Okay, is she is she still trying? Because I feel that she's constantly trying to communicate with me.
Yes.
And why? Why is she?
Do you want to communicate with her?
Yes, of course.
Then my best advice for you is to orally say something to her and then begin to write what her response is.
Okay.
Okay? You have a left brain and a right brain. Just dedicate one side of your brain that answers the questions that you ask out loud to your mother. And ask that you can find remedy and resolve for our karma that your mother has gone through by sharing all of the bodyguard protection units with her. Be the commanding general.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, we are going to call it the end of the show here. This has been a fabulous, fabulous show. Moji, thank you so much for coming on.
No, are you kidding me? Thank you, Andrew. This is fabulous. I can't thank you enough. You're amazing. I love you, and thank you for everything that you're doing. You're just amazing. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge. It's the Holy Grail.
Improvise. Mysterious. It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.